evening we have His Holiness Dhirasanta Maharaja, who is going to be giving a presentation to everyone, but the presentation is the garlands can wait. Okay? The presentation is going to be in a different room. It will be upstairs, but before we move upstairs, he's going to introduce the topic down here, and then afterwards, because we're dependent upon the video screen, which is upstairs, move upstairs, and it will continue there. And, you're going to introduce the topic, is that what it was? Okay. You want the harmony? Magyaduvanandisya janandina samakaya chaksuramritam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Swavadam Chitam Vansha Kalpatubhyasya Kripa Sindhu Vacha Patitanananda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Shri Advaita Shivasari Gaura Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So last year we had the 50th anniversary celebration of the 50th anniversary of ISKCON celebration, and during that celebration there are many offerings given to Srila Prabhupada from temples and individual devotees. And for myself, I decided to offer Prabhupada some slideshows. And tonight, I want to show one of these slideshows which I prepared. The slideshow is called Atma in Transit, or another name, Traveler's Nightmare. Atma in Transit means, just like when you're on a journey, you're taking a flight to Los Angeles, but you stop in New York on transit. You're not at your destination, you're somewhere in between. So you don't have all the facilities for life, for living, to be happy in transit. In the same way we are living in this material world, it's not our final destination. It is not our home, it's not our real home. It's a temporary place where we're trying to exercise that little bit of independence that Krishna has given us, because he doesn't force us to serve him. So he's given us some independence to choose whether we want to serve him or not. And we have chosen to take that independence and try to compete with Krishna's enjoyment in the spiritual world. So the slideshow that I'm showing is basically a full circle from the time we left Krishna in the spiritual world, where everything was very pleasant, it was full of peace, free from
anxiety. We decided to use that independence and we came to this material world. And in this material world we've been traveling with different species of life. And there's one verse which explains this. Ramanda Pramiti Kuna Bhagavan Jiva. According to their karma, all living entities are wandering throughout the entire universe. Some of them are being elevated to the upper planetary systems, and some are going down into the lower planetary systems. So there are 900,000 different kinds of aquatics. There are 2 million plants and trees. There are 1,100,000 reptiles. There are 1 million birds, 300 million beasts, and 400,000 different human species. So we have been through them all. Happy birthday to you. We're not actually the age we think we are, but we're so much more older because we've been here for so long. When we came to the human form of life, which is the form of life where we can enjoy much more than in the animal species, much more adaptable for material enjoyment. So we exercised that ability to enjoy with our mind and our senses. Our mind became disturbed, our senses became uncontrolled, and our false ego became inflated. In this particular slideshow, you will see the soul going deep down into the pits of material life, coming down to the lowest possible area of ignorance. So this is the very nature of the material world. It's very entangling. The three modes of material nature is very harsh. There are plenty of shock treatments to be had, one after another. And in amongst all that, we developed attachment for things around us. There's a nice story in regards to material attachment. Narada Muni was on his way to Vaikuntha, and he was passing through some fields, and he saw one merchant. His name was Kailash. And he stopped and spoke to Kailash. He said, Kailash, I understand that you're a merchant, and I understand you're busy in this world, but I'm going to Vaikuntha right now, and if you like, you can come with me. So Kailash said, well, thank you very much. It's a very nice offer, but I have responsibilities. I have a wife and I have 2 sons, and I have my business which I haven't finished yet developing. Perhaps at a later date I will come with you. Can you come back and see me at a later date? So Narada Muni said, okay, I'll come back. And Narada Muni did come back. He came back when Kailash was an old man. He had gray hairs, his teeth were popping out. He was at the fag end of life. I don't know if you have that expression here in England. We have this, the fag end of life. Sometimes people have smoked a cigarette and they want to smoke to the very, very end where they can hardly hold the burning fire in their hand. And this is what happens here in this material world. Because of attachment, we hold on. And this is what Kailash did. He held on. Because when Narada Muni came back and said, okay, Kailash, your time is nearly up. I'm ready to take you. I'm ready to take you home. But Kailash was so attached that he said, I'm sorry, Narada Muni, but I cannot come with you because now I also have a couple of grandsons. And I have this and I have that. I need to finish. This business has not been developed enough yet that I can say that I've completed my life circle. So Narada Muni tried to persuade him, but Kailash was adamant about staying. So Narada Muni left him. But Narada Muni, he's one of the topmost preachers within this universe. He doesn't take no for an answer. And if he wants to deliver someone, he will deliver them. So he came back again one day, and he was looking for Kailash. He knocked on the farm door, and one of his sons answered. And he asked, where is your father, Kailash? And one of the sons said, well, we have some grave news. Our father, he left this world 15 months ago. And Narada Muni said, oh, I'm sorry to hear. Please accept my condolences. And as Narada Muni was leaving the house and walking down the garden path, one dog started to bark. Rauf, Rauf, Rauf. Narada Muni, Rauf, Rauf. I am Kailash. Rauf, Rauf. Do you say Rauf, Rauf here? You know, in different countries they say it differently. You say Rauf, Rauf? Rauf, Rauf. Rauf, Rauf. When Narada Muni looked down and he saw the dog. Kailash? What are you doing in the body of a dog? So Kailash the dog said, my sons are not putting the money they earn into the bank. I must protect the house from thieves. Rauf, Rauf. Narada Muni said, okay, Kailash, even in the body of a dog I will deliver you. Let's go. But again, Kailash the dog, he was too attached. And he refused to come with Narada Muni. Again, Narada Muni came back years later, and he was looking around for Kailash the dog. And he was nowhere to be seen. He knocked on the farm door and he said, oh, I just thought I'd pass and say hello. So the sons, thank you Narada Muni for thinking of us. Please give us your blessings. Narada Muni said, oh, by the way, last time I was here, I met one dog. Is your dog still here? And one of the sons said, oh no, that dog, he has left his body about 9 months ago. And Narada Muni was thinking, oh, where's Kailash gone now? And as he was walking through the fields, the grain fields, he heard a sound within the bushes of the grains. And Narada Muni looked down and he saw this snake. You're Kailash? What are you doing in the body of a snake? Kailash said, well, they have put the money in the bank, but they don't get up until 12 noon. I must protect the fields from elephants. Kailash, the snake, was so attached that even in the body of the snake he was protecting his old fields. Narada Muni said, look, Kailash, this is your last chance. I can deliver you even in the body of a snake. Let's go. But again, Kailash, he declined the offer, giving so many excuses. For Narada Muni, that was it. That was enough. He clapped his hands 3 times and he shouted, Haribo! Haribo! Kailash's sons came running out of the house. What's wrong, Narada? You got a snake in your field. Okay, we're coming. So they came with sticks and they started to beat Kailash, the snake. And Kailash, the snake, was trying to communicate. I am your father. But the more Kailash hissed, the more the sons beat Kailash till he was dead. The good news is that Kailash died in the presence of a pure devotee. He died in the presence of Narada Muni. In his next life he became a great devotee of the Lord. He perfected his life and then went back home back to Godhead. Haribo. Haribo.
Haribo!
One time Srila Prabhupada was asked this question. Why is there overpopulation? And usually, of course, he would say, I'm traveling all over the world. From my plane window, I see so much land vacant. There's no question of overpopulation. On this particular occasion, I was in a big pandal program in Hyderabad. Thousands of people. And when this Indian gentleman stood up, he thought he was being clever. What about overpopulation? As if it had any reverence to Srila Prabhupada's class. But Prabhupada's reply was, yes, there is overpopulation, because no one is going back home, back to Godhead. So the system is, there's no upward mobility, the system is jammed up. And so this Krishna Consciousness movement is giving everyone facility to go back home, back to Godhead in this very lifetime. There's a couple of songs here which I'd like to... This is a song by George Harrison. It's called Any Road. But I have been traveling on a boat, on a plane, in a car, on a bike, with a bus and a train traveling there, traveling here, everywhere in every gear. But oh Lord, we pay the price with the spin of a wheel, with the roll of the dice. Yeah, you pay your fare. And if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. And I've been traveling through the dirt and the grime, from the past to the future, through the space and the time, traveling deep beneath the waves, in watery grottos and mountainous caves. But oh Lord, we've got to fight with the faults in the head, with the dark and the light. No use to stop and stare. And if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. You may not know where you came from, may not know who you are, may not have even wondered how you got this far. I've been traveling on a wing, on a prayer, by the skin of my teeth, by the breath of a hair, traveling where the four winds blow, with the sun on my face, and the ice and the snow. But ooh-wee, it's a game. Sometimes you're cool, sometimes you're lame. Yeah, it's somewhere, and if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. I keep traveling around the bend. There was no beginning, there is no end. It wasn't born and never dies. There are no edges, there is no sides. Oh yeah, you just don't win. It's so far out, the way out is in. Bow to God and call Him Sir, but if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. So this is traveler's nightmare. Traveling all over the universe in different situations and species of life. And the other song I want to read is specifically in the human form of life. This song is the sad tale of my human life. With age I am humbled, deprived of success. I weep as my hollow life leads me to death, lamenting the decades of unpardoned strife. I hereby submit the sad tale of my life. Alive in the womb of unbearable night, I lay in a bag with no air and no light. Then pushed from the darkness in shock and in pain, a network of fantasies had covered my brain. I simply surrender, no more will I moan. My Lord, I am fallen, oh please take me home. I laughed as a child in my relatives' laps. Parental affection had strengthened the trap. I drew and I studied each mundane event. So proud and so learned, now both I repent. Then eager for money, a household and a wife, I took on the burden which strained me for life. And time gone forward, how dearly it cost. Life's progress had halted intolerable loss. Bewildered and angered, my worldly desire, my selfishness grew and consumed me like fire. For the greatest of pleasure I put into pain those others whose flourishing had threatened my gain. And now I am humbled, diseased and downcast. My senses and feelable enjoyment has passed. An old man with fever in constant distress, alone and afraid, so afraid of my death.
Who's the author?
Guru Krishna Prasad by Bhaktivedanta. Out of many millions of wandering living entities, one who is very fortunate gets an opportunity to associate with a bona fide spiritual master by the grace of Krishna. By the mercy of both Krishna and the spiritual master, such a person receives the seed of the creeper of devotional service. So you will see in the slideshow that the soul, having gone down to the lowest depth of material life, the super soul within the heart, who is sitting next to the soul, he took pity on this particular soul and delivered him. He engaged him, he sent his devotees to engage him. He sent his devotee to engage him in devotional service. He perfected his devotional service and then went back home, back to Godhead. So it was full circle. So in 20 minutes you'll see our whole life's existence in the material world. We only wish it was only 20 minutes, but at least you can see it within 20 minutes in the slideshow. For those who are already devotees, I guess most of you are devotees, it will be a reminder of what material life was all about, and how we can be grateful for the many gifts that Prabhupada has given us. Like these wonderful children we have tonight. Prabhupada said our children are Vaikuntha children, and we must give them Krishna Consciousness as much as possible. For those who are not devotees, if someone's coming for the first time, then it may be an incentive, the slideshow may be an incentive to become a devotee and start chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. So the whole point of the slideshow is to remind us of the intricacies of this material world and how cumbersome and difficult it is to, as Prabhupada would say, a hard struggle for existence. That's the nature of this world. It's a hard struggle just to exist, let alone be happy. Which means that it's not a natural environment. Prabhupada would say, this place is no place, this is not a place for any gentleman or a lady. If you consider yourself a gentleman or a lady, then take the trouble to go back to where you belong in the spiritual world. Lord Chaitanya is very kind. He's given us a boat. He's lifted us from the waves of the free modes of nature. He's brought us on his transcendental boat. As long as we engage in devotional practices, we chant our 16 rounds every day, follow the 4 regulated principles, and do some service, try to invite others to the fold. This is what's pleasing to Lord Chaitanya. That's all we need to do. We don't need to be big scholars or big yogis. We just need to do a little bit of service. We need to purify our hearts. Show Krishna that, we've had enough of this world. We want to go back to the spiritual world. So through those devotional practices, we can purify our hearts and return back home, back to God. So we have everything to gain and nothing to lose. Don't slacken in these principles. They're the backbone of our devotional service. Keep chanting the 16 rounds. Prabhupada said that if you chant 16 rounds, then you'll be freed from the influence of material nature. You'll be transcendentally situated. He said if you chant your 16 rounds by 10 o'clock in the morning, you'll have no anxiety throughout the day. So these are the instructions that Prabhupada gave us so that we can be happy every day. He said, chant Hare Krishna and be happy. So this is what we're trying to do. Are you all happy?
Yes. Yes.
Haribo!
Which kind? Which kind? It's three kinds of happiness according to Rupa Goswami.
Happy in Krishna Consciousness. So, if you have any questions about this presentation I'm giving tonight, then you can ask now. And if not, we can go and see the presentation. I don't want the slideshow to be filmed in any way because there's a copyright problem. I'm using music and pictures which are copyright. So I don't want it advertised on the internet. It's just my own slideshow which I show in these kind of occasions where people are coming and trying to understand what is Krishna Consciousness. You can ask some questions. Everyone has to pay a price for something. If you want to see a slideshow, you have to pay the price. This is your ticket. Just ask one question.
When you said 16 rounds of, the kirtan, is it just Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, the kirtan that we just had?
Well, we're actually chanting on beads. I
see.
don't have mine here, but we have beads which we chant on. 108 beads.
I see.
This is a Krishna bead. Krishna has 108 girlfriends. Don't get any ideas, boys. Krishna's God, so he can have 108 girlfriends and maintain them all. On each bead we say the Hare Krishna mantra. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
We go around like that on each bead.
Wow.
And when we come to here, we've done 108 Hare Krishna mantras. That's one round, and we make a vow to chant 16 rounds. Which usually takes, about 2 hours each morning. But that is sufficient to keep us, just like wire, there's a wire that, of course there's no electricity going through this, but the electric wire, it's insulated. You will not get an electric shock because you're protected by the insulation. So in the same way, when we chant our 16 rounds every day, we're protected. It is our insulation from the influence of the world around us. And it's not getting better out there. I think you will agree, it's getting worse. Material life is at its peak. And no one is any of the more happier. So we're offering this alternative solution to all the problems of everyday life. You may begin by chanting a couple of rounds. Don't go right into 16. It may not be possible for you to do that. But begin by chanting 2 rounds or 4 rounds. And keep that number each day. Don't go up and down, because that won't help you. And then you may work your way up. In your home you can have an altar like this. Do you have an altar in your house?
Yes.
What do you have?
Yes, I have a temple like.
Okay. You associate with the devotees, keep coming to these programs because they will help you to understand why we do what we do. It is not easy in the beginning to understand why we do all the things we do. But there's a logical understanding, and as you associate with the devotees and participate in the practices yourself, gradually you will understand. But you must begin somewhere. Well, you've already begun by coming to me. Is this your first time to a Krishna temple?
No, I have been before.
Okay.
In India, I have been to ISKCON temple.
Okay. You like?
Yes, yes.
So start practicing. Just try to chant a few rounds of it. So she's got her ticket to the slideshow. Who's next? Any other questions? Yes.
I have a question it's about material life in a way. So oftentimes we hear that Prabhupada said that a mother's love is closest to real love. And I wonder sometimes how that's to be seen in light of, it seems like maybe that can be the most strong material attachment when you see that many mothers are like, oh, my children are so cute, and other people's children, you know. It seems like a strong material attachment as opposed to, it seems like more lust.
What's that?
Would you like to answer that?
I can if you like. Prabhupada uses that example to illustrate the point that, and I think I made this point the other night, that a mother's love for the child is the closest to real love, because even though the child may act in a contrary way to the mother will not reject the child generally. And that is the closest example. Whatever the motivation, the attachment may be, that's really not the crux of the analogy that's being used. The crux of the analogy that's being used is that the mother will not generally, of course these days, if you listen to the news, mothers are doing a lot of crazy things. Unmentionable things to their children. But still, Prabhupada said it's the closest. He didn't say it was. He said it's the closest. Because real love means unconditional.
Agape?
Huh?
Agape?
Real love means unconditional. That you love the beloved no matter how the beloved behaves towards oneself, because that's love, because there's no conditions in the love. So the mother generally has the least amount of conditions towards the child. And for instance, a friend may have towards a friend, or other kinds of relationships that exist in the world. Generally, closest of unconditional is the mother to the child.
I have one question. I've always been curious about Transcendental Meditation. And when you said that when you do these rounds of, kirtan, it helps you like to be in a transcendental state of mind? Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, there are three modes of material nature: passion, ignorance, passion, goodness. And when you're under those modes, you have to, every action that you do, there's a reaction for it. So even in the mode of goodness, you may do good, but there's a reaction for goodness. But in the transcendental stage, there's no action and reaction. The example is like a lotus flower. The lotus flower, though it's born in the mud, its roots are in the mud, it flowers it flowers above the water, so it's in a transcendental state. It's not touched by the water. So in the same way, this is Kali Yuga, and we're born in the mud of
Mama?
we're born in the mud of the material world, but through these practices and principles we can transcend to the same position like a lotus flower. So the lotus flower is a symbol of transcendence. So we can also, we see that practically, that through our practices and principles we're not affected as other people are. Of course, if we really want to be affected, we can be affected. But if you're trying sincerely hard to overcome the influence of the material energy, the three modes of nature and Maya, then Krishna will give us all protection. Does that answer?
Thank you.
In other words, this is a spiritual practice. It's not just an educational system of knowledge, but it's a practical self-realization we're experiencing through the practices and principles. We gain knowledge of ourselves, we gain knowledge of the world, the differences between the body and the soul, and this is all through the mercy of Guru and Krishna. It's a very mystical experience, which is not had by any other kinds of practices that go on in this world. Even if you go to the university and you have a professor who's teaching you so that you can pass a certain degree. You are very patient with your son, aren't you? He's all over the place here. Hey, come here. Come sit next to me. I want to see the people out there. I see them all. You're the big guru tonight. Well, I've had enough of that, he said. Oh, he's coming back. He looks like a very saintly boy. And we see that also in, even in everyday life, that if you live your life properly, you're rewarded with opulence. If you live your life in a very degraded way, then the reaction to that is that there will be a lot of difficulties and complications in your life. The only complication you have is that your son is a little restless. But that's natural, isn't it?
Krishna was too.
Krishna was also here.
Ради черти 6 раз.
Any other questions? Anyone coming for the first time to our centers? You are, okay. So how do you feel?
It's great. I'm a devotee of Lord Krishna, but only thing is, every time you come to a gathering, there is always something new to learn. So that was the intention.
We'll come up now, we'll show you the slideshow. It's a 20-minute, well actually it's a little bit more than 20 minutes, it's a half an hour slideshow. There will be some pictures which are typical of material life, but in order to show exactly what we've been through already, to get a full color picture of what material life is all about, I had to use some mundane slides. But my object was to show the differences between material life and spiritual. What's he say?
It's his garment. It's his garment.
Well, let's give him a clap. He's Please.
Oh, he's not dead now. I'm sorry. Oh no, God.
So please come up. There's if you sit around the.
There's only two tickets to us also, probably.
Yeah. Well, I'll be leaving up next to the television set. Srila Prabhupada.
Good boy. Good boy.